Thank you all for sharing your lunchtime with us today for today's Lunch and Learn. We are thrilled to be talking about a culture of care and how to promote student self-efficacy. And more than that, we are even more excited to welcome our guest, Ashley Rader, who is an associate professor in communication studies at Johnson County Community College. She is also a Park alum, so welcome. And she's going to be talking to us about her doctoral work on improving student retention and success, and also how it's connected to emotional intelligence, self-directed learning, and just strategies that we can use in our own practice, which is really, I think, what we're so excited about learning and exploring today. This year also, in our Lunch and Learn series, we have it set up where there's going to be brief presentations from our external and expert guests, such as Ashley, but then also where we have some time not only for questions, but to actually apply directly to our practice and to think about that in the context of our own work. So that's really how the next 30 minutes is set up. We're so excited, and to make sure we use every minute we have, I'm going to go ahead and pass the baton over to Ashley. So thank you for being with us. So happy to have you.
Great. Well, thank you so much. I am going to start the screen share and so that you can see my presentation, and then hopefully you'll keep your mics on and we can do some discussion together here in a moment. But first, I wanted to tell you, can you see that okay? About me? Okay, good. I have 4 screens, which is kind of little much, but that's what happens when you do quant work. I am a Park University graduate in 2002 and 2006. I got my undergraduate in journalism and my graduate degree in communication and leadership. I was like the first class of that group. I was adjunct instructor for 7 years at many institutions in Kansas City, including Park. I was the temporary advisor for the stylist for a while, so I do love Park. I am now a full-time professor at communication studies at Johnson County Community College. And I have been for 9 years. I'm on sabbatical this fall to finish this work. I am finishing a degree in education in adult and lifelong learning from the University of Arkansas. And I just wanted to take 30 seconds to say thank you to the Park community, to the instructors here that maybe I had or you were mentored by or continuing their legacy, because I don't know that I ever thought that I think it's part of the way community college students feel, the way small liberal arts students, school students feel is, we're not good enough, or, and I've done really, really well in our one institution, and it's been just a wonderful experience. And so you are part of that and a part of this journey with me. So I just wanted to say thank you for doing all that you have done. So I want to ask a question and see if you'll participate with me a little bit, but how are our students different than they were 4 years ago? What are you seeing in your classrooms that you're like, huh, that's new? Anyone? Go ahead.
Let Nikki go. I'll put my hand up.
You can go, Laura. Go first.
I have so many students who just can't get work done on time. Like just no sense of urgency or ability to say, okay, I've got this big assignment due now, so I'm going to break it into parts. I'm going to start this now. It's a little frightening to me.
Yeah. How about Nikki?
Yeah, that's that too. I've been talking with my supervisor more just about the kind of amount of requests that we're getting to like carry our students through. I had a student just a few days ago send an email saying that there was just a lot to do with her practicum and all her field education, and if I could just give her a to-do list of importance, in order of importance, that would really help her. So just like the amount that's coming to us of like perhaps what is seen as like normal to request from an instructor it seems to be just gaining, and this is only my 5th year, so I've been around for a while, and it just seems to dramatically shift to more and more every year.
Absolutely. Someone else? One more, maybe?
I have my hand up. This is Janine.
Hi, Jane.
I find it a lot more difficult to engage students. So like it takes more just to like get them to participate or to really get excited about what they're being taught. Like they're just, I don't know. I feel like I need to sing and dance around the classroom sometimes. That's kind of scary. But yeah, it's difficult to engage them.
Well, I wanted to do this little moment because a lot of what my study started from was a sense of aloneness or loneliness as an instructor myself, that I'm experiencing these things. I've taught for 16 years. They loved me before, and all of a sudden things are different. What's different? What does this mean? So a little bit of background of where this got started and what we know, that post-pandemic college students face unique challenges and deficits. The standardized scores for ACT is a 19, is the mean now. Average score is a 19. It's the lowest in 30 years, and it fell most rapidly right after the pandemic and continues to fall. COVID-19 was a traumatizing, generation-altering event. That is a new statement, really. I think within education, whether that's K-12 or higher, we've had a little bit of a hard time getting our minds around as adults what this did to them, right? I had a colleague, we were discussing this, and they said, "Do you think it's as bad as 9/11?" I said, "Oh, it's way worse. It is significantly worse on their educational development, and it will last their lives," depending on which group that we're going to be talking about. Non-academic learner traits also have a rising place in the college success discussion. What is it? We talk about words like resiliency and grit and even self-directed learning I'll talk about, that are these kind of pie in the sky, big ideas, elephants you can't eat in one bite. I think a lot about when we talk about assessment and can you make someone empathetic? Can you teach empathy? Well, no, but I can teach you lots of things that might in turn make you empathetic. And another important part of our background right now is that course modalities are changing rapidly, especially at the community college level, which is where my study is centered. But I know from Park's history, being kind of the first in online learning, that this is not new. However, they're different. Something I was really fascinating when we first started this journey in this program in adult learning was that every single existing data set prior to 2020 is basically useless. There's nothing you can do with it because they have such an historical altering event that we can assume nothing anymore. And so everything can be redone. So that led to what is my study that is nearly done. It is not quite finished. We are in the last drafts of chapter 5. I should be defending in like 4 weeks. It's very, very exciting. But emotional intelligence and self-direction orientation, the examination of non-academic factors, these are such a mouthful, in post-pandemic community college students in Kansas and Missouri. So I collected data from a final number of 203 community college students at 7 different institutions in both states. So it can be generalized to a population that you will likely see at least some of them. But knowing that your population is different, use quantitative multiple regression to look at what was the relationship between their self-direction orientation, which I'll tell you a little bit more about in a second, and their emotional intelligence. What was that relationship between their age and their self-direction? And then what was the interaction between their self-direction and their age or their emotional intention? Yeah. Anyway, so self-direction orientation is a skill and a personal attribute. So if you have any training in education, this or adult education, and andragogy, which I can never pronounce, the opposite of pedagogy, can be a learning style, and it is something that we do in our online classes. It's a natural way of doing that course modality, but it can also be this personal trait, this thing that you have a high level of self-efficacy, a sense of personal responsibility over your own learning. You're going to ask questions, you're going to find out answers. What we know about self-direction orientation is that it matures with age. And it is not something that people have at a young age. Really, age 25 is when your brain obviously has grown in, and most people are at the potential to learn in this way. So our 18-year-olds are now already at a deficit for this level of skill. And socioeconomic status also has an impact on it. emotional intelligence is the ability to monitor your personal emotions and the emotions of others, to discriminate amongst those emotions, and to use this information to guide thinking and actions. It is also a personal trait, but it can be improved at any age. We can start very, very early. There is some research that says that it caps out about the age of 65, which I think is really fascinating, that why at 65 we just are done. I don't care about other people anymore, my feelings. But it's something that it absolutely gets developed throughout your lifetime if you choose to engage in activities that would improve it. Part of the reason that this was so interesting to me personally was I would not classify myself as like some smarty pants person necessarily, but I do believe that I have a high level of emotional intelligence. And I even watch my colleagues in this program struggle to get through things because they couldn't say to themselves, I'm frustrated. I'm annoyed because I don't like this assignment. It was a very limited emotional vocabulary for what they were feeling and what they were trying to accomplish. So what were the study results as of this part has been approved, but EI was a significant predictor of self-direction orientation score. It actually was 13.2% of the variance. So for my quant people, you will know that that is a high number. That it was surprisingly high in this particular group. We were really, really shocked that of all the things that make and control for gender and race and socioeconomic status and parent socioeconomic status, all the basics, and none of those were coming out significant. Their ability to do well in emotional intelligence was a very close reflection on how they were going to perform in these environments that are self-directed. Age was also, it was 8% of the variance. The most interesting thing I think about the study that I'm going to be talking about a lot for the next year or so, is that age and EI did not interact. We would have expected them to, right? That as you mature age-wise, you should be maturing in your emotional intelligence. And that was not true of this group. And it was highly focused on 18 to 24-year-olds. The conclusion to that is, it is a post-pandemic thing, that they may have the same exact emotional intelligence scores they would have had at 14. We can't know that, but those things aren't tracking together. And that is important for us as practitioners to kind of understand. And really importantly is the scores for all the scales, the mean was really low for all these students. The EI scores were comparable to the scores of prisoners, actually, which is, you're like, oh, wow. They were on the bottom end on both of those for all the other studies that have been done using these scales. So that leads us to, what are the recommendations? What do we do with this information? We have students who need EI and they need age in order to perform well in these environments, and they seemingly don't have either, or at least a portion of them don't have either. One of the recommendations in my study that most of in this room can't do anything with is that leaders should consider non-academic measures when advising students into course modalities. That we may need to consider how we do this. How do we approach? How are we harming students by allowing them into online or types of courses that are going to require this level of self-direction that they don't have the skill set for yet? They may. Some of them, maybe because of these academic deficits, may never. That's a possibility. The other is that emotional intelligence curriculum should be required at early stages in students' college's career. Now, we can't do much about the K-12 system, right? That if you think about it, their recovery post-pandemic has been highly focused on those academic skills, and a lot of those socio-emotional skills fell to the sideline, at least for this group, and may continue to fall. There was a study that came out that shows there's been no academic recovery in 2 years post-pandemic. As an international study. So we may see we will see the ramifications of the pandemic on this group, and anyone who was in school, probably, who are children or adolescents for many years to come. Classes like public speaking, the courses that I teach, or interpersonal communication, where emotional intelligence is embedded, moving that to the front of their curriculum would be really important. I also think that there's some great discussion around first year experiences, like at Park, where how can we build their emotional intelligence? Because again, we can't change their age. We're not going to be able to mature them in that way. And then where it really applies to us, which I am making the strong case in the study that should be a minimal. I think there's things that we can do, but it's a stopgap. It's a Band-Aid, probably to a much bigger problem. But consider teaching methods that reduce that level of self-direction. And y'all in the very beginning hit on it exactly. Like what you were asking them to do that they could do 4 years ago, they actually can't. And this research shows that it's unlikely that they can even understand what you're asking of them, because it's such a foreign concept. So a few things, and then we're going to do some brainstorming. What do I think we could do? What are things I'm starting to do in my own classroom and building in to try to reduce the level of self-direction, knowing it's a skill that they haven't attained yet, or a predisposition they don't have yet? One is really looking at ways to not overwhelm them. How do I break things into pieces? Dr. Cohen hit it right, nail right on the head, that needing a to-do list is something they actually need, because what they're having is an emotional response and kind of an inability to say, I don't know what to do. How do I fight through this? They just get upset and frustrated, and they don't have the emotional language to deal with it correctly. More one-on-one time. I have mixed feelings about this recommendation. The altruistic side of me loves that, right? Like I want to be that instructor, but I also, as being in higher ed, especially as a female for all of these years, I understand the level of invisible work that I am doing, and the more that I keep doing every year. Enough that like this sabbatical that I'm on to finish this is like the biggest blessing, because I'm exhausted. I'm exhausted of crying students in my office. But do I think that this will improve and reduce the level of self-direction? Absolutely. Integrating face-to-face elements in online classrooms, whatever that can look like, any way that we can possibly replicate whatever magic is happening. So my chair for this dissertation is kind of a leader in self-directed learning studies, and he did a study not too long ago on academic advising. So students with higher levels of self-direction were more likely to seek advising, which is not that helpful, right? So it's the students that need the advising that aren't coming to get it. So I think that's the same case here, that students are enrolling on online might not be the ones who need to be in it. I definitely noticed that with my face-to-face students in the last year or so, that they're outperforming my online students. Talking to students about emotions. This is something I am adding to my spring classes, to all of my self-evaluation, or the self-evaluations the students do, is that there is an emotional reflection. Why did I struggle? If I struggled with this assignment, how did I feel and why did I feel this way? It's just an additional question. It's just a little bit of kind of having this conversation with them. They, in some ways, are standing in their own way, right? Because they have not been given the tools to cope with what college life is. And assuming that if they aren't asking questions, it's not because they don't have them. They likely have them. As I've gone through this process, I've talked to my own students, especially this past spring. We would just kind of start chatting about it. And I asked them, how do you feel about what's happened to you? And I had kind of an epiphany moment of like true empathy. They're really hurt and angry. A lot of them are very aware that they've been robbed, that they don't know how to do the things they should have known how to do. Like they know something's wrong, but they don't know what to do about it. And they feel like they're blamed, right? Like it's my fault. I'm not smart enough. I'm not good enough. When really they are victims of one of the biggest historical events of educational disruption definitely in any of our memories. And so there's things that we have to do to try to help them, I think, within reason, and also ask our institutions, hopefully, to buy in as well. So that leads to a little bit of brainstorming. When we discussed this Lunch and Learn, it was like we could do an activity, but I was just hoping we could take some time and say, what could we do to adjust to this new generation of learners if we now know that we're not off our rockers? They really are not where we think that they are. What can we do to help bridge that gap so that they can go into the workplace and be successful? And then how can we also influence change outside of our classrooms to meet student needs? As faculty, which I know the majority here are faculty, what can I do to influence administration? What can I do to kind of raise this call of that this is where students are and we need to get them a lot farther than we used to?